It is all over in Las Vegas, and the Kansas City Chiefs have beaten the Raiders 31-13, and with that, KC is the number one seed in the AFC. They will have a bye in the first round. There is still a possibility that they'll have to go to a neutral site for the AFC Championship game, but the Bills have to win over the Patriots on Sunday, and then both teams would have to get to the AFC Championship game for that to happen. We're not going to jump ahead too far to that. For the Raiders, the season ends with a defeat at the hands of the Chiefs at home. They are 6-11, and the Raiders will not be heading to the postseason. For more on the Chiefs' ascension to the top seed in the AFC with that win over the Raiders, we welcome in 8-year NFL vet Lige Douzable and CBS Sports NFL reporter Tyler Sullivan. Guys, let's talk about Kansas City first. Lige, they're now the number one seed, the Chiefs. Are they your top seed in the AFC, your favorite to go to the Super Bowl out of that conference?
Right now, no, and that's no disrespect to Patrick Mahomes, who might be the front runner in the MVP right now. Their defense, I just don't trust now. They played a lot better today, right, and aided by some penalties from the Las Vegas Raiders. But my number one seed is the Buffalo Bills. I think we all saw what happened with Damar Hamlin. This team is going to be galvanized around him. Josh Allen has played really well the last couple of weeks. Going back to that game in the snowstorm versus the Miami Dolphins, he literally put his Superman cape on and went out there and led them to victory. So Kansas City, yes, it's close. I would say 1A, 1B right now. But my favorite in the AFC would have to be the Buffalo Bills. But you like what you see from this Kansas City defense these last couple of weeks, because they had been the issue with this team going forward, but they played a lot better in recent weeks.
Yeah, I'll go with you right there. I do believe Buffalo is still the team to beat here in the AFC, but no disrespect to what we see from the Kansas City Chiefs nor the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, you're talking about a Buffalo Bills team and a Cincinnati team that was able to beat this Chiefs team. So, I mean, this is a tightly contested AFC in the top three. I mean, you could really pick either one of those three teams, and I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever. But Buffalo, to me, does feel like a talent class much higher than the rest of the pack tier. And on top of that, the emotional lift that they should be able to propel themselves with, obviously with Damar Hamlin. But let's look at Kansas City here for a second, because they are still, like I said, it's close. They're a legit, obviously, Super Bowl contender, especially when you have Patrick Mahomes under center for you. But more specifically, if they play defense like we saw tonight, and I get it, it's Jarrett Stidham. It's a Raiders team that wasn't going anywhere. They're sending themselves home at this point. But if they're able to pile up 6 sacks and Chris Jones is able to disrupt like we saw in this game tonight, 2.5 sacks for him, they're going to be dangerous. They're going to start rattling the cage of Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and whatever other quarterback they face in the postseason. So yes, while we might say it is Buffalo, we're splitting hairs here a little bit. Kansas City would not surprise, I don't think, any of us if all of a sudden they're in Glendale playing for a Super Bowl.
Well, we know we're going to see the Chiefs again. We're not going to see the Raiders in this form again until next season. What is next for the Silver and Black? Jarrett Stidham looked really good in his first start. He was against Kansas City in this game. We don't think Derek Carr is going to be back. Doesn't look that way. Lige, what's next for the Raiders? What's the best plan to move forward for this team?
Yeah, Russ, first and foremost, they got to figure out what they're going to do at the quarterback position. 2 games does not give you enough film to know whether Jarrett Stidham could be the guy for the foreseeable future. They have to make a quick decision on Derek Carr, because they have 3 days after the Super Bowl until he has some guaranteed money. The only thing is Derek Carr has to be on board, right? Because they can't just trade him away. He has no trade clause. So he has to agree to where he's going in regards to that trade. So figuring out what they're going to do at the quarterback position. And then also, I talked about this in the pregame show, right? The offensive line. Tyler, you just hit on it. 6 sacks against a Kansas City Chiefs defensive line that, besides Chris Jones, had an issue getting to the quarterback. Now, Steve Spagnuolo is a guy that likes to bring some pressure and blitz, but today he was able to let his front 4 defensive linemen get after the quarterback. Alex Bars had a tough day at the office versus Chris Jones. And even when they slid the line to Chris Jones, he still beat guys on the edge. So they have to do something, no matter what quarterback they bring in, to help in that interior 3 offensive line. I think they'll also bring in a veteran at the right tackle position, but they have to figure out who's going to be the quarterback for the foreseeable future for the Las Vegas Raiders.
When you're in a division with Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and we hope to be a revitalized Russell Wilson in 2023, it has to be quarterback, quarterback, quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders this offseason. They have to get that figured out if they want to come anywhere close to contending. They have pieces. Davante Adams, one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Max Crosby, a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. There are pieces on this team of a legit contender, but if you don't have the quarterback specifically in that division, you're going to have some problems here. I don't think anything that Jarrett Stidham could have done, he could have replicated what we saw last week. I don't think that's necessarily going to make him a shoo-in for the starting quarterback of this team in 2023. If anything, it makes him a backup candidate or something along those lines. So I don't think anything that he could have done over these last two games, even with this game being subpar, would put him in line to start. To me, you're looking at these relationships, and I know everybody wants to talk about it. You're looking at Tom Brady. You're looking at maybe a reunion with him and Josh McDaniels in the desert if he continues to play in the NFL at age 46, or he decides to play till 50. Maybe he'll just stick with Josh McDaniels there. Other names to think about, Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously a Patriots connection there as well. So it's going to be about the quarterback. That is what you're going to focus on mostly. But there's also another elephant in that offense. It's Josh Jacobs. What are you going to do there? He just led the NFL in rushing this season. Now he's going to be a free agent. So you have to wonder what you're going to do there. My instinct is to maybe not necessarily use that money on a running back, try to figure out if you could use those assets to help you get that quarterback, but still a main figure in this offense since he's been drafted in the NFL. So he is another tough decision that his organization has in this offseason.
The amazing thing is the Raiders were supposed to be a team that was set up to win now. You got Derek Carr in one of the most statistically prolific Raiders quarterbacks of all time. They bring in his buddy, the receiver, who's going to make all the difference in the world. Now we're talking about quarterbacks. How much of this is on Josh McDaniels, and how much pressure is on McDaniels now to get this thing right with whoever the quarterback is next year, Lige?
I think a lot of it has to do with Josh McDaniels. I mean, just going back to last year, Russ, Derek Carr led this team to the playoffs with not having the pieces that you just talked about on the roster. Let's not forget, Darren Waller was beat up for most of the season last year. He didn't have Davante Adams. He had Zay Jones, who's now in Jacksonville. And then let's not also talk about the distractions this Raiders team had to deal with. Yet Derek Carr led this team and was prolific throwing the football last year. This year, not the same. And again, that happens when you change offensive coordinators. You bring a new coach in with a new scheme. Sometimes it just doesn't fit the quarterback, or sometimes it just takes some time for the quarterback. Look at Aaron Rodgers, right? When he was with LaFleur the first year, a lot of people thought Aaron Rodgers was done. Then what did he do? Back-to-back MVP year. So I think he may have pulled the plug a little bit too early on Derek Carr, and that's on Josh McDaniels. But he has to figure it out, because him and ownership, they're married together because of that deal he signed. So he's most likely not going anywhere. I know a lot of fans wondered, could he potentially get fired for them underachieving this year? But just knowing Mark Davis, I don't think Josh McDaniels is going anywhere. But it's going to be on him next year to figure out which quarterback he's going to use in this offense, because Mark Davis spent a lot of money to bring Davante Adams, Derek Carr's best friend, over here. He brought Chandler Jones over here for them to make a legitimate run at the AFC West crown, and that's not what happened this year.
Yeah, I think that there's certainly, I agree with you. I don't think that there's necessarily a hot seat, because we got to look at these head coaches a little bit differently than players. Obviously, their contracts fully guaranteed. So you're talking about real dollars that these owners have to look at when you're making these head coaching decisions if you want to move off of these guys. So now you're talking about paying whatever you still have to pay for John Gruden, and then all of a sudden you're paying Josh McDaniels and then another head coach? That just feels like way too much money for Mark Davis to really be piling into that position on his team. And I do think that you do maybe need to give a little bit more breathing room to a Josh McDaniels. But ultimately, this season was, like you said, not what many Raiders fans thought it was going to be. The expectation was that they would be contending for the postseason. This Week 18 game should be one. They should be one of those teams where it's a win and in or win and need help. They didn't even make it that far, and not only in the way in which they got there as well. I mean, we're talking about a team that lost to Baker Mayfield, who arrived in Los Angeles just a few days prior. You're talking about a team that lost to a Jeff Saturday-led Indianapolis Colts team where he had zero prior head coaching experience. So not only do they miss the season in disappointing fashion, the way that they did it, it just felt like there was not a lot of continuity, not a lot of experience there for Josh McDaniels, who was supposed to come in as a second-time head coach with a little bit more stability. So for me, yeah, you want to say that his seat's a little hot, but the money maybe says elsewise. But for me, it's about the quarterback. If they're able to get that thing right, I think all of these conversations get a little bit more smooth. If Tom Brady or anybody along those lines comes in and starts to stabilize things, I think you're less talking about Josh McDaniels and more talking about other things across that roster.
All right, Tyler Sullivan and Lige Douzable, gentlemen, for the time being, we are done with you, but we really appreciate the knowledge on this NFL Saturday in Week 18. Gentlemen, thank you so much. The Chiefs, by way of their win over the Raiders in Week 18, have clinched the #1 seed and the bye in the first round in the AFC playoffs. If the Bills win on Sunday against the Patriots, and if the Chiefs and Bills both advance to the AFC Championship game, then that game would be played at a neutral site. All other possibilities have the Chiefs hosting the AFC Championship game at Arrowhead, if they get there.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.